everyone. Happy Tuesday and welcome to our regular SCC Digital Ministry Support Network live stream. We're starting a couple minutes late today, but thank you so much for joining us from wherever you are. Every single week, we provide you with practical and helpful information to help you when you're doing your digital ministry stuff. So as you're working with your church, as you're working with your videos, your sermons, everything that you do every week, we want to help you out as much as possible, help you feel as comfortable as you can and as confident as you can with the stuff that you're doing. So we've talked about many different topics over the last, it's been 6 months, just about, but today I have a topic that I want to talk to you about that's a little bit more on the administrative side. It might seem like a little more of a boring topic compared to some of the fun stuff we've covered, but I promise you that it is super important for your digital ministry. So the topic we're going to talk about today is password management. It does sound kind of boring, but stick with me and we'll find out why this is so important. So first, as we start this topic, just by way of introduction, I want to encourage you to think about your digital face to the world when it comes to your ministry. So this is your website, this is your Facebook account, your YouTube account, Twitter, all of these platforms that you use, Instagram, and the way that people from your community, people join you online and get to know who you are. This is your public face, if you will, digitally. Now, I want you to think about what would happen if one day you woke up and you were not able to get into any of it. You weren't able to find your church website login, you weren't able to access your information and post your latest sermon, and you weren't able to get into it. Or even possibly worse, somebody else got that information and they started acting like you and posting what you're gonna maybe or maybe not post on your stuff and you lost control of it. Think about that. That's why this topic is so important. Some of those scenarios of losing access and having somebody else get into your stuff online is not the best case scenario, right? Well, in addition to that, another common thing that I experience with churches is volunteer turnover. If you've worked in the leadership of a church for any amount of time, I'm sure that you've experienced this yourself, right? You have somebody who is super talented, super excited, and wants to help you out, volunteers to build your church website or manage your Facebook presence for a time. And they do an awesome job, but sometimes they move on. Maybe they'll move to a different position in the church, or they'll move to a different state and not be able to continue. And so these things are natural, but sometimes when this happens, one of the issues that we encounter is when people are not able to access it who remain in the church. So perhaps when something like this happens, the people who are left in the church want to continue on that presence online, but maybe they don't have the login information. Maybe they don't have the password, and contacting that volunteer is a little bit tricky. Maybe they don't remember what they used, and all sorts of things like that, which some of you watching today may have encountered yourself. So these are some of the reasons that password management is super important. So there's two main elements we're going to talk about as we go through some of the things about passwords today. So these two main elements are the importance of your passwords being secure and the importance of your passwords being streamlined and centralized. So centralized and secure are the two aspects we're going to look at today. So for secure, that element talks about how can you protect your information and have passwords that are long enough, that are complex enough, that are different enough, without having to remember all of your passwords all the time, or keep them in an unsecure place, right? Now, when we talk about centralized, the centralized element of passwords, this comes to the fact that we want to know how can the aspect of security and having all of these unique and complex and safe passwords work with the idea of a team. So if you have different people in your church working on your website, working on your YouTube channel, or some of these different things, how can you make sure that the right people who are working with your ministry always have the access they need, and the passwords are strong, the passwords are safe, they can always access them without putting them in such an open place that they're not safe anymore, right? You don't want to put these passwords just in a general note or in an email or something, because that might not be the most safe thing. Sure, the people you want to have the passwords can have them, but sometimes in those situations, other people can access them too. And that leaves us in a vulnerable spot. So when we talk about passwords, it goes all the way from the confidential stuff you have in your church, confidential information maybe you're storing virtually in the cloud or on your church computers when it comes to some board meeting stuff and confidential information about your church, in addition to your public face as a church, right? When it comes to your digital ministry presence. All of those things are important to us, right? We don't want any of that to be compromised. Now, when you think about that, who can remember 100 unique and secure and strong passwords without putting them in a place that nobody can find or that everybody can find, right? How do we balance that? And how do we avoid forgetting these passwords that are so unique enough to have to reset them over and over? Nobody wants to deal with that either. So we're going to take a look today at a few different strategies that are simple, streamlined, easy, and cost-effective as to how you can manage your passwords and how you can manage them as a team so that you can be streamlined and safe and stay in control of your digital ministry presence and keep that safe as well. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to take a look at a little video that just talks about what some of these programs look like and what they do. So take a look with me.
You have hundreds of accounts for websites, apps, and services, and each one gets a password. Most of us take something easy to remember, our dog's name backwards plus the year of our first kiss, and use that for everything. Easy? Sure. Secure? No, not at all. If one account were to get compromised, your whole life could be turned upside down. The smart thing to do would be create a unique password for every account, right? Secure? Sure. Easy? No, not at all. So what do? Write them in a notebook? Sticky notes? Make up a song? No, what you do is use a super smart, super simple app called 1Password. With 1Password, all you need is one password. What the app does is collect all your unique passwords into one super safe place and locks them up behind something only you know, your 1Password. And it's integrated right there in your browser. So when it's time to log in, just click the button, enter your 1Password, and you're in. Here's another cool thing. You come to a new site that asks you to make a new account. 1Password will generate a new secure password for you and save it where it needs to go. Next time you want to go to that site, just hit the button. 1Password will do its thing, and you're in. And it's not just for passwords, it's for all sorts of information you need to keep safe. Bank numbers, credit cards, top secret ideas, files, anything. All locked up where no one can get to them but you, with your 1Password. And your passwords are with you wherever you are because your 1Password syncs automatically between every computer and device you own. So it's always up to date. No more sticky notes, no more dog names, just you and your 1Password.
So this is pretty cool, right? An app like 1Password, which is not the only one, which we'll get to in a few minutes, but an app like this helps you to be more secure without having all of the stress of coming up with passwords that are safe and secure, remembering them, and trying to keep them in a nice place that you'll remember them and all of those things. So it protects your organization and your digital presence. It helps you to remain in control of that, where other people won't be able to access these passwords if you don't want them to. So there's another element that covers the secure aspect, right? That helps us to create secure passwords, keep them all in one secure location behind 1Password that we come up with. Now, that covers that aspect, but the other aspect that I talked about is the centralized aspect. So in addition to being safe and secure with our passwords, we want to make sure when we're working in a church, especially when we're working in a team like that, that we're also going to be centralized with our passwords so that different volunteers who come and go can access them when they need to. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how these apps help us with that centralized aspect and how they make that a little bit more streamlined. We're going to take a look at another app that is a password management app that helps us to work on this streamlined aspect and this centralized aspect as well. Take a look with me.
This sticky note is worth $3.9 million. The average cost of a company data breach. There are at least 7 in the office right now, even after your memo. The number of cyber attacks has been rising year after year. 4 out of 5 caused by weak, reused, or stolen passwords. We get it. Passwords are inconvenient and we're all juggling way too many. That's why employees rely on easy solutions, like reusing a mom's, cat's, uncle's, dog's name. And security measures they find confusing lead to more help desk calls, which lead back to more sticky notes. Dashlane is a solution designed to address these headaches. On the front end, employees can generate, store, and fill passwords with a system that's as easy to use as it is secure. While on the back end, you're given security reports with actionable insights, all through a clean admin console. Security relies on adoption. Give your team something they'll want to use. Dashlane. Total password protection. Zero business disruption.
So these password managers are not just for you. These password managers can be for your team as well. So they can really help you integrate into your team something like this and really be as centralized as possible for your passwords. I cannot overstate the importance enough of being centralized with this, because I've seen too many times where, as I mentioned earlier, people will shift around in their positions in the church, and then when that happens, nobody can access the website and the digital presence stalls. So we don't want to do that. So you can make sure everybody has access, and only the people that you want. And the people who your page might be vulnerable to, hackers online and stuff like that, aren't going to be able to get to that information. So there's one other video I want to show you before we get into a little bit more information after that. But when we look at team ways to use these programs and how to really take advantage of that centralized aspect of sharing passwords in a safe and secure way, this last video I want to show you talks about how practical it can be, how easy it can be, and also safe at the same time when it comes to sharing passwords with your team, keeping them all in one place. So let's take a look at this last video and then we'll get into a little bit more stuff.
Bitwarden Send is a simple way for you to transmit sensitive information to anyone, fully encrypted. How many times in our work histories have we or a colleague reached out to a coworker asking for sensitive information via an unsecure method such as email, chat, or shared documents? All of these methods leave our sensitive information vulnerable and out of our control, as we have no way to delete it off other people's chat, text, or email. With Bitwarden Send, nothing sticks around long term. This is the power of built-in protection and automatic deletion. Let me show you how quick and easy it is to use. When you need to quickly share a temporary piece of sensitive information, it needs to be sent securely and privately.
Imagine how helpful that would be when a new ministry volunteer joins your team and they ask, hey, how can I help with Facebook, or how can I help with our website? And you have the password in a password manager like Dashlane or Bitwarden or 1Password, or some of the others that I'll show you in a little bit. And you have the password there, and you can easily just click, share, copy, send them the password in a secure way, not just the password itself, and they can go ahead and get started, and the link will expire or something like that, so that it's safe and it's not going to remain in that information. It's not going to remain in the chat. It's not going to remain in the email. But they'll have it and you'll have it too. And so how helpful can that be? Just imagine how much more streamlined your ministry can be when you try to manage all of this digital stuff with a program like this. So as we've talked about, I want to go over a couple of the benefits a little bit more clearly, and then I'll show you some of the other options. So I see a comment here. about pricing. What is the pricing for this service? That is a great question. So we're going to get to that in just 1 or 2 minutes. And that's a really good question. So thanks for asking. So we've gone over some of the benefits, right? So you don't have a loss of access from person to person when you have different volunteers. You have better security. There's no more just using easy to use passwords like password or 123456. But you're able to protect your information, and it's also streamlined and simple. Adding a program like this to your workflow, it doesn't complicate it. It doesn't come at the cost of simplicity or ease of use. So that's the good news. A couple cool parts of these apps that I really like. I use one of these myself just for my own use, and it's super helpful. It generates a password, as you saw, so you don't have to come up with a random string of numbers just from your own mind. It gives you a rating for the password strength. So you're able to see how strong your password is, have peace of mind with that, and know, okay, this is going to be a good password, and you can choose that. You can generate another if you'd like, and you can see that as well. And of course, you can share the password. So these are some really cool and helpful parts of this. So the big part that I was about to get to answer the question we got about pricing. So I'm going to pull up a slide here, and we're going to look at this. So Dashlane, 1Password, and Bitwarden were some of the ones we looked at, right? I know somebody who uses LastPass as well and loves it. Keeper is a good option, and Zoho Vault is a good option as well. Now, the reason I put all of these up here is because they all have a lot of similar properties. Like, they all can do a lot of the same things. And so it's really just based on preference and cost. Now, as you'll see, the cost is almost the same for a lot of them as well. Now, all of these, as far as I know, except for 1Password, have free versions, as far as I could find. So that's really helpful. And the free version that you'll find with these different programs is generally created and marketed for an individual user. So for you, if you want to keep your own personal private Facebook password, if you have other programs and you want to keep all your different passwords for your email and your desktop computer password and all that stuff, you can go ahead and put that. You can just download one of these and use it for personal use. That's why some of these are free. That's what it's marketed for, the free version. The reason they have paid versions that add on to that, you'll see different numbers here. This is not all inclusive of the versions they offer, but these are probably the ones that I'm thinking will fit the needs of churches. The reason that it goes up, so let's say a lot of these, the second version is around $36. It's about $3 a month. It is charged annually, so you'll pay $36 a year. The reason that they do that is because when you go up to that tier and you are paying for the service, it usually will add more users. So if you want to have a team of 5 people, 10 people, or some of them are unlimited, then you'll go to the paid version. Now, as far as I know, Dashlane is one that I'm pretty familiar with. I believe Dashlane allows you to share passwords with 5 different people on the free version. So if your church group that is working on your digital stuff is 5 people or less, you can probably get by with the free version. And that's the same for some of these other ones. Zoho Vault, you'll notice, has a little bit of a lower price for the paid version. It's 90 cents per month if you pay annually. And that gives you the ability to share with multiple people as well. I believe that one's unlimited, but I'm not quite sure. So you can definitely take a look at the different pricing pages on these websites of these services and find out which one fits your needs the best. But they all do almost the same thing. You store all your different passwords in there. You can put a note. You can put the email and password you use to log in for a specific service, and you can put a note about the specific username in addition to the email, or how many people you have logged in, or what that Facebook account is, which ministry that's for, or something. You can put little notes next to the passwords and do all of that sort of stuff as well with most of these. So the video we saw from 1Password earlier that talks about how all of those different doors, right, that represent different services all combined into that one app, they all basically look like that. Another reason to keep in mind why some of these will have a charge is because it will allow you to use different devices. So if you want to download Dashlane, LastPass, 1Password on your mobile device, you can have the app and you can have all of your passwords on here in your pocket. or wherever, and always refer back to that. If you want to use it on your desktop computer, maybe create an extension on your web browser if you use Chrome or something. A number of these have extensions available as well, so you can use that integration. Some of these will upgrade you to a paid version if you want to use both simultaneously. So if you want to use a web browser or a desktop app even, and you also want to download the same service and log in on your cell phone, then you will upgrade to a paid version because you're using multiple devices. Some of them do charge for that. Some you can do that on the free version. So definitely take a look depending on your needs and your preferences. And I encourage you to look at the websites of these programs and just see what options they have that you need and that you want. So that's basically an overview of the pricing and of some of the different programs. Now, this is not all inclusive. There are other programs out there and other strategies out there, but these are some of the popular ones, some of the ones that I know work and that I felt comfortable sharing because I know that they're reliable. So with that in mind, as we wrap up, there are just a couple things I want to mention in terms of best practices and commonly asked questions when it comes to password management programs. So I definitely recommend keeping your team small. So as I mentioned, for example, Dashlane will have a group of, I believe, 5 that you can share with when you have a free version. So that's going to be really helpful if you have a small team and you only have a few people. And I do recommend considering keeping it to that if you don't have a really large church and you can get by with just a few people. Now, the reason that I recommend that is because I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, you probably have, but sometimes when there's too many cooks in the kitchen, so to say, it can cause a few problems, right? So it can be a little bit more difficult when you have a lot of people trying to work on the same thing at the same time. So you don't necessarily want a lot of people in the same account editing the same things. It's kind of hard to keep the strategy of what you're going to post streamlined if you do that. So if you can manage it, if your church is not too big to do this, or if your strategy is not too complex to do this, I do recommend keeping your team small, and that will also help you with some of these programs and which ones you're able to use and save on costs possibly that way as well. So another thing to keep in mind is that whether it's for personal, individual, or team use, these apps are really helpful. Even if you don't feel at this time that you have even another person that makes a team big enough that you need the sharing capabilities, even your work laptop or whatever computer you use for work, whatever email you use for work, being able to save some of those, and personal as well, some of those passwords will help you to be secure and safe, even keeping your own information and the information that you use for church in those services safe as well. So it's definitely useful all around. Now, one commonly asked question that I see when I'm kind of looking into this stuff, if you use Google Chrome or other browsers that allow you this capability, you'll notice that Chrome does have its own keychain that will suggest a strong password for you and save it directly into Chrome so that when you're browsing online, it'll just fill it in for you and it will save it. Which sounds like it does pretty much the same thing as these apps, right? Well, one thing that I have found that is not quite the same is that all of the passwords saved in your Chrome keychain, I'm not saying this is a bad thing to do, but just to keep in mind, if you go that route, all of the passwords saved in that keychain are under the umbrella of whatever Google account you're using. So if that one Google account gets compromised, all the passwords saved in your keychain are compromised as well. Rather than keeping them in this third-party app that you have access to only, that will be a lot safer. The keychains are not always encrypted either, so that's another thing to keep in mind. These different apps and password management programs are always encrypted, and the teams at Dashlane, LastPass, they can't even see your passwords either, so they're encrypted, private, and safe. They'll also notify you if there's a data breach at one of the places where you have a password, so Facebook, Gmail, anything like that, Dashlane or LastPass or 1Password will notify you the password you have for this one service has been compromised. So they'll have other features like that that you can keep in mind. And also the keychain aspect of Chrome and things like that doesn't necessarily always have such secure sharing capabilities that are as automated, integrated, and easy. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So those are some of the ideas when it comes to password managers. And like I said, it's maybe not as much of an exciting topic as we've had before, but it definitely is in the background of everything that we do, right? When you're working on your live stream, when you're working on your website, if your password gets compromised, it kind of stops you in your tracks because you can't do some of the other things we've talked about on here. So it's super important to keep this in mind, and it's not difficult to get started, and you can get to work for free with a lot of the stuff that you do, depending on the size of your team and some of your preferences and requirements for a program like this. So that's what I have for you today. If there are any questions for anyone watching, feel free to leave it in the comments. I don't see any additional questions at this time, but definitely if there are any other questions, leave them in the comments. We'll take a look. And if you have a password manager that you use that you really enjoy, that meets your needs, leave that in the comments as well. We would love to know about it. Like I mentioned, these are of course not the only things to use, not the only way to really meet this need of security and centralization. But these are some of the popular, reliable ways to do it. So if you have something you like that you use, let us know in the comments. And if there are any other topics you want to hear from us about in the future for other digital ministry live streams, other topics that you're perhaps struggling with or wondering about, let us know. Leave a comment, make a post on this page. We'll keep our eye out for it, and we'll be happy to address that in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and happy Tuesday, and we will see you next time. Take care.